I don't think there is an IC meeting right now where we don't speak about AI. Everybody is looking at this lens. And whenever you look at the business, you start thinking about what is the long-term value or the terminal value of this business that would be considering for an investment.
Welcome back to AI and PE, Future of Value Creation. We're thrilled to have Giacomo Sonnino from Charlesbank with us today. As Charlesbank's advisory director, Giacomo drives operational improvements and value creation throughout the portfolio companies. Prior to joining Charlesbank, Giacomo served as the North American COO of Quantum Black, McKinsey's AI and analytics consulting arm. Welcome, Giacomo.
Thank you, Kyle. Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Look, we're really excited about today's conversation. It's going to be focused on exit readiness and what does AI ready actually look like for PE-backed businesses. And so, Giacomo, I thought we'd start there. Like, when you think about AI ready at exit, what does that actually mean in practice?
You can create value with AI today. So you better be creating value with AI at exit. This answer is probably very different than what the answer I would have given you 12 months ago. But 12 months ago, I probably said, look, you need to have an AI roadmap. You need to have some pilot, ideally some proof points. Ideally think about how your offering will change if with AI, if relevant. That's probably not sufficient anymore. Today, you need to have a clear articulation of how AI is going to affect your business model, how you are addressing AI with a clear roadmap linked to your value creation plan. You have to have some proven use cases, some real AI implemented in your workflows, some demonstrable benefit, and ideally, an offering that is already changed with AI. That's probably today what AI exit ready means. 12 months from now, obviously, will be different.
It's so interesting, like the point on 12 months ago versus today versus 12 months from now, it's moved so incredibly fast. And so like with that pace, with all the change, like how are you distinguishing like between companies that are differentiated versus ones that are just keeping up?
Companies with AI can create value in three ways. A different level of sophistication, obviously. Number one is general productivity. You and I and anybody else can use Claude, can use some meeting productivity and AI tool, can email productivity and so on and so forth. That's helpful, gives us hours back, may give us better output. Do we see bottom line from that? Maybe, but not directly. There is then what I call proven use cases. And there is a lot of proven use cases now that you can just go and execute, that there are either third-party solutions or is really known how to do it. I'll give you a few examples. Software development productivity, sales and marketing effectiveness, customer experience, and AI, would call it broadly the back office, finance, legal, and so on and so forth. These things are proven. There is solution out there that are ready to implement. People know how to rethink workflows. I mean, you guys, you know very well how to do that in the finance space. And the risk reward on this is pretty clear. Low risk of implementation because they're proven and known. Speed to impact is also generally quite fast. And then the third and more exciting way is what I call AI in the core of the business, which could then means actually very different thing by business. So if you are a software company, is your product AI? It includes some AI enablement. If you are a business that like a wealth manager, the core of your business is your advisor. Are you driving advisor productivity with AI or lead generation with AI? That's the core of your business, and so on and so forth. That's a lot harder. You actually have to rethink how work is done. You have to redesign your workflows. You have to redesign your tech stack. You actually have to drive a lot of change management. Now, you asked what are the companies that are differentiated? Those that are differentiated have built a system to create value with AI that tackles these three things. And these three kind of potential ways of value creation and are increasingly going into the third one in a very systematic way. And they build an infrastructure around it.
You're part of a lot of potential deals and businesses that you evaluate. Is AI, are you seeing it more explicitly come up in like buyer conversations, in diligence processes today for deals you all look at?
I don't think there is an IC meeting right now where we don't speak about AI. Either at Charlesbank, but I would imagine there is pretty much every IC in the PE industry. Everybody is looking at this lens. And whenever you look at the business, you start thinking about how this business will operate in a, I don't know if I call it a post-AI world, but like definitely in a few years, given AI, what is the long-term value or the terminal value of this business that would be considering for an investment?
Companies are going through their AI kind of journey at various stages of adoption. Are you finding there are common areas where companies are getting stuck in kind of accelerating adoption, moving from pilots to like production? What are you finding in the market right now?
The most likely failure that I observe, the failure point or failure mode, is company gets stuck in pilot purgatory. Companies get doing like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 12 pilots, have proof points, and never get out of that. And I actually try to avoid pilots at all costs. But the common mistake that get to that point is, I'll give you 4 failure points specifically. Number one, you see AI program led by the CTO and CIO. So you take it as a technology project, not as a business problem. Very little CEO involvement or no involvement or in general business leadership involvement. And then thinking about this, not thinking about how this is a business project and how to impact the change the workflow, how we change the way we do the work. These 4 common mistakes leads you to doing small trials that never get traction in the business and that get stuck into what I define as pilot purgatory, which is you have some hints of this could be interesting, but you don't have the buy-in to drive the large-scale transformation to actually change how the company does the job. I can give you the counter to this, which is what do the companies that actually get it right, what do they do? I articulated into 3 things. Number one, you need to be AI ready. What does it mean? Well, you need to have a CEO that has high conviction and vision on this. You need to have an AI leader. In general, someone like appointed at the C-suite level, not a technical person, but a business person, can lead this initiative. And you need to have a clear AI strategy or roadmap or how your business is going to change through it. In addition to it, you need to have a clear understanding of what is the impact of AI on the revenue and margin of the company at a granular level, like not that overall company, but like business by business, product by product, offering by offering. I would say both short term and long term, because that is likely going to be different. And then you need to get going with a clear infrastructure to execute the technology build, the workflow changes, and change management. Without these 3 things, you're not going to get any bottom line impact of any meaningful size.
Yeah, I like that that intersection here. It's one thing to your point, like having a CIO, CTO lead these initiatives is not necessarily the right starting point. You mentioned getting the CFOs or CEOs fully engaged, fully bought in, appointing someone on the AI leadership side, having a roadmap, having the infrastructure, et cetera. There's a lot of things that you have to do there and get right. Do you find, is it the definition of the roadmap, the CEO buy-in? Is it the resourcing side? Where are people finding more obstacles kind of navigating today in the portfolio?
In general, majority of CEOs would say, well, I'd love my team to do it, which is great. You want your team to own it. But as you and I know very well, the skill set needed to do this technology building and change management most likely do not exist in the majority of the companies. And so you move to the next step, okay, which is like, okay, how do I create the environment for success? Which means, can I go hire and find the right talent, like an AI transformation manager or AI talent that can actually go build technology, a serious project managers that can drive this technology build or product changes, infrastructure, do training, and so on and so forth. And then very frequently you find that hiring that talent and integrating into organizations is really hard, and the skill that you need is really big. So what you do, you default to third parties. You go out to the market to find third party today, and you find a lot of marketing. And It's very difficult to navigate what's real and what's not real. And people just think to make big statements, and figuring out what's actually delivering and who can deliver, who cannot, is really hard. And it's really hard, for example, and it's very hard for me, and I've been doing this for 10 years. So someone new will find it a lot harder.
Yeah, I think you could throw a rock and hit thousands of consulting companies that say they do AI work. Well, let's talk about an example of your portfolio. You got a large portfolio of companies today. Tell us about like a leader in your portfolio from an AI perspective. Like, what are they doing? Like, what makes them a leader today?
I'll give you 4 examples. 2 in the business services sector, 2 in our technology and tech infrastructure sector, and they all share very common features that leads them to success. And namely, then would be Accordion and Aprio on the business services side, and Simpler and Everdriven on the technology side. What do these company CEOs do? Number 1, extremely high aspiration on what AI could mean for the business. Very clear leadership, very, very clear roadmap. How are we tackling the business operation? How are we tackling our offering? How are we using effectively AI in support of the value creation plan? I can give you exactly how they articulate it one by one. There is no doubt about how AI has contributed to their business. Number 3, they put an enormous amount of resources against this topic because they realize that it is absolutely fundamental for them. And number 4, very rigorous governance reporting, both at company level, but also board level. This is clearly a board topic for all of the company I mentioned.
Yeah, it's helpful. I think it's helpful to hear like the examples. I think that resonates with folks. Like, oh, if I'm a service business or I'm a technology business, I can get my head around and my arms around what this might look like. In your role, you're in a unique role on the advisory side, the operating side. How do you think about partnering with portfolio companies on embedding AI, but doing it effectively? To have really the biggest impact? What are some of the things that you do and your team does?
As you know, the operating partner job is a little bit of a ninja that requires you to deploy very different skill sets, and deploy in very different way depending on what's the need of the company. I'll give you 2 different operating models in which I see ourselves operating. Actually, let's say 3. Number 1 is part of my job is to work with the management team to raise the aspiration and help put in place the conditions that we've just described. Aspiration from a CEO perspective. Do we have a leader in place to drive this? No, let's go hire him or her. Number 3, do we have a clear AI roadmap linked to the value creation plan? And number 4, do we have resources that can go and execute? So call it truly a counseling and advisory point of view. Then there's a second step, which is, look, there is so many operating partner in the world, and there is a lot more companies, so you need third parties to do the work. So I spend a lot of time curating a network of vendors and external advisors that we can deploy in the portfolio that have different levels of skill set and different levels of sophistication. And so I can help our portfolio companies select the right vendor for them or for what they're trying to do and accelerate the deployments. And number 3, on a case-by-case basis, when the ROI is extremely high, myself and some of my peers that focus on AI, we can deploy into a portfolio company to help accelerate some of these programs. There is a trade-off at any point in time of like how you optimize your deployment versus ROI, because when you go to do these AI transformations, there is only so many that human can do. You can do 1, maybe 2, but you certainly cannot do 7 or 10 of them. You need a network of vendors to support that. And ideally, you want the management to own it and drive it. So it's not even the right answer for an operating partner to go do it in every single company in their portfolio. That's not success.
If you think about companies you've looked at and companies even in your portfolio, like, is there a side of that story that tends to resonate more with buyers, or is it a combination of both internal and external? What are you seeing right now?
It depends is the answer, but it depends on 2 dimensions. Number 1 is it depends by the business type, and it depends on the size of the price. So what brings it all together is like you have to do a prioritization of AI against the value creation plan. I find it hard to imagine that you're going to market a transaction knowing that, let's say, you could serve client in a improved way with AI and not having done it or not having a plan to do it. So if your front office can be disrupted with AI, you should probably do it, thinking about how you address that point. At the same time, you can get tremendous efficiencies and effectiveness and margin improvement with AI. You should do that too. The question becomes what is the balance? And it's all depending on the size of the prize here. If you need to improve your margin, there is plenty of margin to go after with AI. I'm thinking about software development productivity and thinking about even how can you reimagine the finance function with AI? How can you reimagine your legal function with AI? How can you reimagine your kind of back office processing with AI? There's plenty of that you can go there. The fact that if you go do it or not versus the front office depends on the size of the prize and what are the priorities.
Yeah, and to your point, it's a balancing act. But the size of the prize is really important. You should, if the prize is big enough within a reasonable amount of time period, you should probably go after a number of things. So that brings me to, so we talked about like what are buyers, maybe what's resonating with buyers more often. But there's this term called AI theater that happens in diligence and through a process. Um, what are you seeing? Well, one, explain AI theater first, but second, how are buyers like yourself seeing through that theater?
A lot of companies think about call it what they can dress up for an exit process. And I would say people are naive. They can think they can dress up through AI or through an AI roadmap. It's fairly clear to see if you're serious about AI or not, and if you're seeing value from AI or not. For example, everybody, as I mentioned, I was going to market in the next, let's say, 0 to 12 months, will have an AI roadmap in their set. Great. There will be companies that have reinvented their products with AI or product and services with AI, and companies that have not. Clear demarcation. Have you changed your offering? There are companies that have completely redesigned their processes. There are companies that are going to say that they may redesign their processes, and there are companies like, we're fine. We're not going to do that because AI doesn't touch us. It's actually quite binary to see where you are. The only area of a gray area, I would say, is when people are starting early doing some pilots and not actually having fully done the transformation. And what you would typically find is people make a statement like, oh, we have demonstrated whatever, X many thousands of hours of efficiencies. Great. But what is the bottom line impact of those hours? The answer is that's where the rubber hits the road, which is in many cases, people will say, well, that creates capacity into the system, but we haven't yet seen the uplift in the system for those hours. And we have not seen the cost reduction from that because we are kind of stuck in between. I call it, again, I go back to the concept of pilot purgatory from earlier. That is the moment of gray area where you need to understand, okay, are we really going to go through with these savings and these initiatives or this uplift that we can get because we have more productivity or not? Everything else, I would say, is pretty binary.
It's such an interesting term, theater. I mean, it's. I think back to the idea of moving from pilots to production has always been around in the data science field, and that was always a measurement we looked at was, are we moving from pilots to actually productionalizing these things into a workflow, into a process, a system? I think that's even more so true with AI. It's one thing to have individuals in a department or function using the tools and they're more efficient. It's another thing reimagining that workflow with AI so that you might need the same amount of people, you might need less. They're significantly more efficient, and you're actually seeing a quantifiable benefit versus what can oftentimes feel like a cost avoidance type of narrative versus a real hard dollars.
For sure. I completely agree with you. And the reality is like, look, I'm oversimplified to an extent, but my recommendation to almost to everybody, we look, whatever company you're looking at in whatever sector, find someone that intersects from an expertise perspective from AI and that specific sector. Like you're looking at a wealth manager, find someone that knows AI in wealth management. You're looking at a whatever software company, know someone that go and diligence someone that knows AI in software development. And you have to go again extremely granular. The high level statement of what AI can do to software development is just not going to be helpful in underwriting.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. I mean, it goes back to the notion that like the deeper you are in a workflow in a subsector in a subsegment, the more real it becomes, and I think the more value you can create with it. Well, look, we haven't really touched on finance yet, so I think it's about time we do. Look, we spend a lot of time here in finance and back office, and we see AI drive a ton of really near term and immediate ROI. From your view, like where are you seeing AI today within finance organizations having the most impact, and maybe juxtapose that with what that might have looked like 6 to 12 months ago, because it's moved so significantly in recent months.
Let's start with the title here. Finance is a proven opportunity. AI can transform the finance function. There is no doubt. There's so many use cases. You have to do it. That's the title for me. The subtitles of that, there's two. What can you do today as a CFO of an existing company? And what will you do if you were to build a finance function from scratch, or what the finance function of the future will be? Those are two different words that you have to think about. Let's start from what you can do today. There are technologies, solution providers that can help you drastically change how the finance function works, how the people in finance spends time, and the value that you get out of the finance function. In the past, and in many companies, we see a lot of resources in finance doing, I'll call it important but boring transactional stuff that can actually be done a lot more efficiently and effectively with AI and free up a lot of time, a lot of money for finance to be a real thought partner of the business. I'll give you a practical example. Every single company in the PE space, portfolio company in the PE space, has to do a 13-week cash flow. Every single one. There is no company in the PE world that doesn't do a 13-week cash flow. The enormous majority of this company in the past have done it through an Excel that gets run by someone that spent 50 to 100% of the time running that process, collecting files, consolidating AP and AR, connecting bank information, etc. In today's world, there is no reason, literally zero, for which that process needs to be run by a full-time person or a 50% of a full-time person. You can rethink your process with the help of Accordion and others. You can use technologies that are there that actually give you a live cash flow on a day-by-day basis by connecting your ERP, your bank accounts, your general ledger, etc. There is no need for a person to be involved beyond looking at the result and thinking about liquidity of the company, not spending the time processing it. There is plenty of this example. Close. Again, how many companies spend 15, 20, 25, 30 days closing? There's plenty of technologies that help you do that. Think about FP&A. There is plenty of AI out there that can help you optimize your FP&A processes, improve your accuracy on forecasting, improve your efficiency in producing the forecast and analyzing the variances and so on and so forth. Those just in the core of finance. But then reality is you want to use those technology, free up costs, free up capacity, get to same or better outcomes, by the way, and then use that time and resources to go do things that are a lot more impactful for the business. Think about RCM, think about pricing analytics, think about cost analytics. That reality, the finance team might not even have time to do today. But those will be actually a lot more valuable in shifting and creating value for the business. I would think about finance today as a land full of opportunities in terms of literally going process by process. How can you rethink the workflow? And I'm not suggesting that every CFO goes and does 20 of them at the same time. But I do think that CFOs need to think about how I'm going to transform what I do and start with the things that are most burning and most important for them. It could be close, it could be cash flow, it could be planning, it could be analytics. But you need to have an answer. And then the most visionary ones, CFOs, and the most visionary company would actively be thinking about what is the shape of the finance function, I don't know, 3 years from now, 4 years from now. I would call the finance function of the future. You will certainly not start with the tech stack you have today and with the org design that you have today. So you actually have to think about what do you want the finance function to be and do it very differently, because you can have a lot more value with a lot less cost.
Yeah, that's right. And if you're reimagining what finance looks like in the future, you're not always beholden to the legacy of, how you did things over the last couple of years, even with some efficiency gains with AI. Imagine systems talking to each other with agents. Imagine agents doing a lot of these activities and folks not having to pull data, reconcile data, map data in Excel to PowerPoint to all these various disconnected tools. There's a real future where these teams are much smaller, but even more impactful, I think, with agents and kind of reimagining these functions with AI at the forefront versus tacking on AI to existing processes.
For sure. And I would even add that in the past, we were limited by the available technologies, and there were only so many, and they were costly and difficult to implement and fairly rigid. So thoughtful companies and thoughtful CFOs can think about what are the 2 or 3 agents that can drastically change what I do and help me create more value. In the past, you needed enormous teams to go do that and enormous cost. Today, the right team can do it fairly quickly. And so you can start thinking doing very sophisticated things, like thinking about it. Let's figure out what are the 3, 4 anchor system that we want to use. Let's figure out what are the agents that we need to build to operate or connect those systems. And let's think about how the humans interface with this world of system and agents through an orchestration, what I call an orchestration layer. So a simple platform on top of everything else that help us be more efficient, more precise, more productive. Building something like that 2 or 3 years ago would have cost millions of dollars. Today is actually a lot more affordable and more feasible given the tools that we have available. And I also find that the technology innovation is moving so fast that I think probably 6 months from now, you and I would be having a very different conversation of what's possible with AI than what it is today. And certainly it's different what we thought 6 months ago. All of this in terms of finance function of the future, finance use cases, agents in the finance function, it's just very real.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's one thing, and we're seeing it now, like you can move much faster, you can build much faster with smaller teams. The one thing I want to round out this part of the conversation with is all of that is great. The change management, the transformation that has to occur within these organizations, like how do you think about going through implementations without overwhelming the entire organization?
I'll leave you with 2 takeaways. Number 1 is if you want to be successful, you have to put real time and effort into change management. And number 2, it's fairly unrealistic for a mid-market company, PE owned, to do more than 1 or 2 or 3 of these a year. You're certainly not going to go do 10. You may do 1 or 2, maybe 3. There is just not enough capacity in the system to absorb all that change management. Therefore, connecting to what we said earlier in the conversation, you need to know what is your map, your AI roadmap. You need to know where your AI roadmap links to your value creation plan. You need to know what ROI you're expecting, and you have to go after that ROI. And you're going to go after the big things. Therefore, you're not going to go do 10 of them because you don't have the capacity to drive the change management. There is no organization that I see today that is doing 10 use cases at scale in a single year. Not going to happen.
Yeah, I think something you said like resonates so much with me. It's like the change management piece is significant across these businesses, and I think under invested in a lot of the times. I want to wrap maybe with one question for you, Giacomo. Like as portfolio companies, maybe earlier in their hold periods, their life cycle, like what would you recommend? Like this is the single most important thing you can do right now related to being exit ready with AI transformation. What do you think it is?
You have to think about how your business is going to look like in a I call it post AI world. And I define that by if something can be automated or redesigned or redone with an AI enabled workflow, someone will do it. In other words, if it can be automated, someone will automate it. So better you do it to your business, someone else does it for you. But you have to do that thinking.
Giacomo, thanks for joining us. This was an awesome conversation about like what does it actually look like to be AI ready for exit. I think some of the insights around CEO engagement, having folks dedicated to AI transformation with clear, quantifiable benefits of what you do. I think it rang true that like you got to start now and frankly, be ready for a lot of the change management that's going to be required coming out of this. I think the areas, whether it's internal use cases, external use cases, the opportunity in finance, I think it was just a really rich conversation and appreciate you being part of it.
Thank you.